Welcome back to Rich Words Music, where today we're looking at this. It's the NUX Plexi Crunch Pedal, and this is what NUX are calling a Marshall in a box. It's from their reissue series. It costs less than $50, and what it promises to give you is a high gain Marshall Plexi type sound through a clean amp. NUX themselves refer to it as offering you high gain distortion tone with the character of the famous hot-rodded British valve amps from the golden age of rock. So you pretty much know exactly what you're going to get with this pedal. It's high gain Marshall tones. Now, before we get into the rest of the video, let me just tell you that NUX sent this pedal to me for the purposes of making this video. I'm not getting paid to do the video. I don't know if I get to keep the pedal or anything like that, but just so you guys know, this pedal was sent to me and I did not buy it myself. Okay then, so what have we got on the Plexi Crunch pedal to take a look at today? Here we have the master, which is the volume control. We've got a preamp control here, which is actually the amount of gain going to the preamp in the Marshall amp there. Here we have a tone knob, and here we have a presence knob. So the tone control controls the mid-range of the amp, so you can either bring in more mids or scoop them by turning it down, and the presence control controls the high end. So you turn up for more presence, for more of a bright, bitey, high-end sound, and you get kind of more of a warmer, mellower sound when you turn that presence knob down. Then the pedal looks a little bit like a Marshall amplifier. You can see exactly what NUX are going for with it. It's the NUX Plexi Crunch pedal. What we're going to do right now is play it in typical Rich Words music styles through a bunch of different guitars, through a bunch of different sounds to see where we can really go with this pedal. I'll use my Fender Telecaster, my Fender Stratocaster, and my Epiphone Les Paul with this. We'll go straight into my Hughes & Kettner Black Spirit 200 amp head. We'll play a bunch of riffs, and at the end I'll do 3 different loops, one with each of the guitars, so you guys can hear how extreme you can get with all of the settings on this pedal. It's the NUX Plexi Crunch, but let's play it now and we'll talk in more detail about it afterwards. Okay then, so that was the NUX Plexi Crunch Overdrive Distortion pedal, and I hope you enjoyed the many tones on offer in this video. Now this pedal just kind of begged me to play it because I don't really do a lot of Plexi style drives. I don't really do this kind of high gain playing that much either. So I was out of my comfort zone for this video. Maybe you guys realized it from some of the playing, hopefully not though, because I did my absolute very best across all three guitars, and I did have a lot of fun with this pedal. Let's start with the good parts, the fun parts then. The first fun part is the fact that if you're buying this, it probably costs you less than 50 euros, dollars or pounds. So this is a very, very affordable pedal indeed. Now if you've got an amp that doesn't offer you that kind of Marshall sound and you want something to do high gain, for this price it's pretty much a no-brainer to be able to try one of these out because it's so affordable. And if you want to buy a boutique Plexi pedal, there are many brands who do them, lots built in the USA, and they will cost you probably about 3 times, possibly 4 or 5 times what this pedal costs. So in terms of budget, the NUX is a winner in that regard. But what about the sounds then? Of course, that's the most important part. If it doesn't sound good, there's no point buying it, even if it's cheap. So I actually think that I really enjoyed it across all 3 of my guitars, and this pedal is also something that you can use with a variety of instruments and a variety of pickup types to get a lot of different tones. I thought the Tele, the Strat and the Les Paul all handled it very differently indeed. Now, when I first plugged the pedal in before I shot the video seriously, I plugged the Les Paul in first because I assumed that humbuckers would be the way to go with this pedal. And broadly speaking, I would say that humbuckers are probably, for me anyway, the natural ground for it. When I play high gain kind of stuff, when I think about the kind of players who had high gain Marshall amps in the past, not necessarily Plexis, but JCM 800s, modded Marshalls, things like that. I think about hard rock players who are mostly using humbuckers. Mostly in my head I have a picture of Slash for whatever reason. I'm not a huge fan of his particularly. I think he's a very good player and I like some Guns N' Roses songs and some Slash's Snake Pit stuff, but yeah, anyway, Slash is the guy who is in my head when I think of this kind of pedal. So I picked up the Les Paul and it worked very well indeed. Now, with the preamp gain all the way down on the Les Paul, it was very, very chunky already. So this guitar with the Les Paul was not really at home for playing any of my normal indie kind of stuff that I do. I did a couple of samples so you can hear that, but it was kind of too much. It's too aggressive to be doing that. And I know the pedal is billed as being a high gain Plexi sound, but for me, it just rocked a little bit too much in that context. But for the genres the pedal was conceived for with the Les Paul, it sounded fantastic. It did the heavy rock and the classic rock stuff really, really well. And it even went all the way up to the metal and almost chugged a little bit too. I found that the tone and presence controls were very, very sensitive. You're really able to dial in exactly what kind of tone you need, and to my ears a lot of the tones I got for glam rock, for hard rock, they sounded to me like genuine records from those genres, especially with the Les Paul. Now when it came to the Tele, my favourite Telecaster, I was possibly the most disappointed of all three guitars because for some reason the Tele just didn't have the same qualities as the Les Paul and also the Strat did. For some reason the Tele sounded a bit deader to me. Now I haven't edited the video yet, I'm literally doing this just after I finish playing, so hopefully that's how I feel after I've heard back the sounds as I cut this video together. But as I said, the Strat and the Les Paul for me beat out the Telecaster. Now when it comes to the Strat, I was not expecting anything from this pedal because normally I would play the Strat cleaner with low to medium gain maximum, and I thought that with the preamp gain on this all the way down, it was probably going to be too much. But in some settings it worked really, really well, and I really liked doing, for example, those samples on the neck pickup with the gain about a quarter of the way up. Lots of tone, lots of presence, something like this. The settings would have been doing kind of Hendrixy sort of classic rocky stuff. And that sounded really, really fat and juicy to my ears, and it sounded like songs that you hear from that kind of record and genre. So in that sense, I think this affordable pedal took me, not that kind of a player, into that ballpark very quickly indeed. And I think with a bit more time I could get even closer to getting those authentic tones. So the Strat also did the bridge pickup stuff very well indeed. I was expecting it to be a little bit too brittle and bitey, but with these powerful EQ controls you can tone that down a bit. I didn't find any sounds where the gain all the way up was usable for me. That was just way too flubby and woofy. It was just too much. As I've already said, this pedal rocks a little bit too much for me anyway. But in terms of the three guitars, I'd say Les Paul best for me, then the Strat, and finally the Tele. And the Tele wasn't bad, it just didn't reach the heights of the Strat and the Les Paul. So there's plenty of good things to say about the Plexi Crunch then, and I've just said most of them in fact, but what about the downsides? Are there any negative factors to this pedal? And I have found a couple of things that I just want to bring up here. The first would be, despite the cost, I know this has been built to a budget, but once you get close up, it kind of feels like it. You can sense it in a way. Now, some affordable pedals are kind of built like tanks anyway, and you could imagine touring with them. They wouldn't break, they wouldn't have any problems on the road, but it's a little bit different with the Plexi Crunch. Now, I'm not saying it looks like it's going to fall apart or anything like that, but if I was to go on a tour, if I was to have a pedal board that I was going to be stamping on every night, I don't really think that I would trust having this pedal there for more than a week or two, because there's just something about it where it doesn't feel like it's as solid as some other pedals. The pots and the knobs feel a little bit wobbly. And if you recall, that was actually an issue with another NUX pedal that I looked at, the Steel Singer. I'll point to that there so you can watch that review another time if you want. But that also had, I believe, plastic pots here, and those are just not going to live up to the rigors of the road. They're not built for super durability. So if I was going to be touring this pedal, I think what I would probably do is have a loop switching device, so you were never actually physically touching the pedal. It would just be sat there and you'd bring it in and out with the switcher. So that's a problem that you can circumvent in another way. But I think something to know, this is not built for years and years of stomping on in earnest. And I think in terms of the cheapness as well, it looks good, the pedal, but it looks affordable too. not a problem, just something I notice when I'm looking at it right now. A couple of other things that I would like to change if I was to be able to build this pedal for myself. I would say I would really like to have a low-end tone control, a bass switch. Now, you can do a lot with the tone and the presence controls there, altering the mids and the highs in the tone, but for me personally, I often felt like I really would like to have just had the option to change the low end of my tone. Now, I don't know if this is something that NUX have modeled specifically after a certain Marshall amp, but I feel like, you know, give us a bass control there so we can really tweak the tone to the best of our ability, because I felt like in a few of the cases I needed it, and perhaps you can hear that as well. There was a little bit of low end just missing for me in certain samples in the video. The other thing I have to say is, as you turn the preamp control, you would expect this, but the pedal does get quite noisy, and I think that with a Les Paul it's absolutely no problem, but I did have quite a lot of hum going on with the two single coil guitars. To be expected at high gain, but just something that I think is not my favorite thing in the world about a pedal like this. So that's the NUX Plexi Crunch in a nutshell then. It's a supremely affordable pedal. It's taken me into totally new tonal territories, actually, because as I said back at the start of this talking part, I don't really play this kind of music that much, and it was so much fun just to plug it in and start pretending to chug and pretending to play hard rock and stuff that I absolutely don't ever play and can't either. So this pedal has inspired me to start playing some new kind of stuff. So well done to NUX for sending it to me and for letting me experience this kind of music again, and to try and start playing some of these 80s riffs that I've never really bothered to learn before. Hey, maybe I'll even get into lead playing at some point, who knows. But yeah, if you're thinking about doing something similar, if you're interested in a high gain Plexi type pedal, then consider giving the Plexi Crunch a try if you can. As I've said numerous times now, it's a very, very affordable pedal. It's got a wealth of tones on tap for many different genres of music as well. Just don't expect it to do low gain, and don't expect to put it on your pedal board and jump up and down on it 20 times a gig and have it survive for years without any problems whatsoever. If you do all that, you'll be absolutely fine, and I think you'll enjoy this pedal very much. Now, just before I end the video, I should tell you that I've done another video about another NUX pedal in the reissue series, and that's the Steel Singer. Now, this one, the Plexi Crunch, is a Marshall in a box. The Steel Singer is a Dumble in a box. So that's a slightly different, slightly lower gain style of overdrive. I'll link to that in the description, in the cards or whatever. So watch that as well if you're interested, because that's another super pedal, excellent value for money, and lovely, lovely tones, which actually fit my personal playing style a little bit more than the Plexi Crunch does. But that's it for today then. I hope this video has answered all your questions about the NUX Plexi Crunch, but if you've got any more, put them down in the comments there and I'll answer all of them to the best of my ability. Please stick around and subscribe to the Rich Words Music channel if you're watching and haven't done that already. Plenty more videos like this on the channel, and plenty more to come as well. But that's it for today then. I've been Rich for Rich Words Music, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.